So far in this series, we have discussed the torso when it's stationary, but today we will begin to consider moving the torso. It's something we do all the time, but it's not something most of us have thought much about. Though the torso can obviously be moved in a large number of ways, there are two basic kinds of movements. One is walking, but walking requires a deeper understanding of the legs, so we will hold off on talking about walking for now, though we will eventually need to understand how to walk correctly, because otherwise, even if you have attained beautiful standing posture, you will lose it all once you take a couple steps. But there is a more basic movement of the torso that we will consider today. That is, leaning with the torso. Perhaps leaning with the torso sounds strange to you. When do you really need to lean your torso? But really, we lean with our torso all the time. Whenever you have to do anything where you are not standing fully upright, you are likely leaning with your torso. Need to reach your hands into the sink to wash the dishes? You will need to lean your torso. Going to sit into a chair. Part of that process will involve leaning your torso. Picking something up off the floor. Again, you will be leaning your torso. There are complexities involving the legs when leaning while standing. So to start, it's a good idea to work on leaning while you're sitting. What we've learned so far concerning the torso when it's stationary is largely applicable to leaning as well. When you lean your torso forward or back, you want to maintain the frontal plane and the back line. If you're leaning, of course, the frontal plane will no longer be 90 degrees to the ground, but the plane should still be flat. The back line should also remain flat and not be rounded or arched. And just like in standing, the rib cage should be kept high above the pelvis the entire time. If you are going to keep the frontal plane flat while leaning, you will have to move the different parts of the torso at different speeds. The further a point on your body is from the point of rotation, the further that point will have to move. When you're seated, the point of rotation will be your sit bones on the chair. That means your upper sternum is going to have to move further than your lower sternum, which will have to move further than your iliacs. If a point has to move a larger distance in the same period of time, that point will have to be moved more quickly than a point that is moving a smaller distance. A common problem that people have when leaning is that they want to move their lower sternum and lower ribs very quickly ahead, and they will not accelerate their upper sternum nearly as fast. That will of course lead to the kind of arching of the back that we've seen in standing. The bottom of the rib cage will jut forward, and the top of the rib cage will be pulled back. Just like in standing, that will shorten your thoracolumbar fascia, and you will have to work harder with your muscles when you lean than you would if you had the support of your fascia. This is part of why people have such a hard time getting out of a chair, especially as they age. Another unfortunate aspect of leaning like this is that your neck will be severely shortened. We don't just see an arching of the back when people lean in their habitual way. We see a massive retraction of the head and upper sternum, to the point that the back of the head is behind the back line. If we compare with a picture of F.M. Alexander, we can see just how much of the neck is missing when you lean like this. But some people will go a little different route, and they will round their back as they lean forward. People who do this will have to bring their ribcage very far down to get the leverage they need to eventually stand up. And still, they typically accelerate their lower sternum and ribs much more quickly than their upper sternum. This is also shortening, it's just shortening in the other direction. Leaning is something that's fun to experiment with because, with a little thought, you can lean in a very different way than you usually do. Can you increase the speed of your upper sternum and decrease the speed of your lower sternum and lower ribs when you lean forward? This is tricky because you can easily deceive yourself. But fighting a bit with your lower sternum and lower ribs can reveal to you how strong of a habit you have, that you really have a pull to lean in a particular way. At first, It will likely feel very unusual to slow down the forward acceleration of your lower sternum even a little bit. But even if you don't succeed in slowing it down enough to get your upper sternum forward, it should help you start to understand that you can lean in a different way than what you're used to. It might also wake up some slumbering muscles and fascia in your torso. So try it out. But there is a common counter-argument to what I'm saying here, and it goes something like this. Why would I want to always lean in the same way? That seems restrictive. I want the freedom to be able to lean in any way that I want. That is what good posture really is. Freedom. What you're suggesting is too strict. Dare I even say it's rigid. You're trying to impose some kind of mathematical exactness onto human movement. But living things don't move like that. They are adaptive, expressive, and free. People need comfort and ease in their movements, not rules that say, do this and don't do that. It sounds like quite a strong argument. Is there any reasonable rebuttal? Do you have any idea what my response will be? Give it some thought. Could you make a rebuttal to this argument? Think it over and then tune into the next episode and find out if I've been helping you this whole time or robbing you of your freedom.